Welcome to Talking Wildfire Indonesia. Today we're here in Kalimantan, Borneo. Borneo is in an interesting time for as far as fires. Borneo is transitioning from a fire-resistant ecosystem into a fire-dependent ecosystem. Join me as we travel around Kalimantan, talking to the people who live here about the situation. Hi, and welcome to Talking Wildfire with Michael Hill. Today we're going to be talking about Dayak burning processes and some about their slash and burn agriculture. The Dayak people live in Kalimantan and actually all over the island of Borneo, which is the third largest island in the world. The Dayak people historically for the last 2,000 years have been using fire in their slash and burn agriculture system. The basic idea of their system is the land is on a 5-year rotation, where for the first year after a clearance, which is slashing, which you can see here, the bamboo is dropped along with a lot of the other fuels, and then a fire is applied to the landscape in a certain area. This creates an environment of a layer of fertilizer. But it's only for one season, which is 1 year. And this will be, the first year will be rice that'll be planted by the Dayak. And rice is a major part of their culture. After the first year, the land will be rotated into the use of banana, cassavas, and other plants. I want to show you with this video something interesting in that the Dayaks are masters in fire use to the level of some expert fire agencies in the United States in using fire for certain purposes. And I'll show you what's happening here is that this is the side of a mountain in Borneo, and it's very steep here, as you can see, and covered with a layer of thick bamboo that's dried and other vegetation. Above this is a flat area, and then the mountain goes up again steeply. So what's happening along the top is the Dayak are using fire, and they're going slowly across the top, and they're reinforcing their burn to create a black line or a buffer along the top of the fire. There are several allied families working together here to do this, and they work together in their burns and they work together in their planning. And what's happening here right now, as you can see, fire is starting to be brought down the hill. But I want to tell you a little bit more about the situation here. There's 20 people at the top of this fire, and they have traditional tools which are made from bamboo, fire line scrapers, and also water carriers and fire sticks. And these tools they've been using for hundreds, if not thousands of years to do fire protection. And they're brilliant in that they're simple and they can be made on the fire ground, disposed of, and then another one can be made very quickly compared to our Western tools, which are definitely not that way. So the fire itself is along the top has been exposed to fire, and it's being exposed now. And then the people are going to start bringing the fire down the fire line here. And what I want to show you is how they do it. There's a lot of different tactics and fire use, and I actually have a background in it. So I want to talk to you and kind of show you a bit of what's happening here to demonstrate the high level proficiency that the Dayak have with their fires. So what's happening here under this tree line, as you can see, there's a line of fire being brought down, but there's something else happening here. If you look down at the base of the tree line, there's a clearing, and the clearing goes down. You can see it really obvious in the lower half of the video here. And there's a big burn patch that you'll see there. This has been cleared away using tools by the Dayak and scrapers, and also their chainsaws and machetes, that they've cleared all this going up here. And they've actually cleared back under the tree line and all the way to the top and around the whole fire. The bottom is cleared with a river, which you'll see soon here. So the people are going to, the Dayak people, which are the two burners, are going to bring their fire down with them, and you'll see this soon. But what I want to show you is that There's nothing haphazard here, that this is very, very thought out and very meticulous what they're doing. The tree line behind it is a rubber plantation. And I know with Western eyes it seems like a forest, but to the Dayak, it's definitely a rubber plantation. It's very valuable to them. For the Dayak, in Western society, on a fire, when we light something like this, if we lose it, and then there's an acceptable loss in that we can bring in fire departments to help us, or we can bring in air tankers, or we can let the fire go, or whatever happens. With the Dayak, that's impossible. The Dayak have a zero ability for risk on the wildland fire environment here. You can see a guy coming down now with a fire stick, and this is what he's going to use to start the fire. And you can also see he has a hoodie on, and that's for protection against the heat, and with his sweatshirt there. And he's going to work on this pole here, and we'll see it in a second with the machete. But while he's doing so, I'll tell you a little bit more about this. So the Dayak, they work together in family groups. So again, there's opportunity for risk. If someone in the family group gets hurt on a fire, that's a major issue for the family. There's no social welfare program that's going to help them, at least not to the extent there is in other parts of the world. Also, the tribal law for the Dayak areas is that if a fire moves onto someone else's property and does damage, the landowner of the people that started the fire has to pay for it, which is very expensive to the Dayak traditional people. And the third reason they don't haphazardly light fires around their area is that if there would be a fire and there would be loss associated with it, there would be a real political impact with the Indonesian government. And that would be for all Dayak people. And to burn for them is really important. To burn for them is part of their identity and how they get their rice. And their religion is connected to it, and their whole way of life is connected to fire and rice. So that there is a zero risk tolerance they have. So everything is pre-planned before they do it and thought out to a very high degree. And so I'll show you some things happening here. The guy that just came down the hill with the fire stick, well, you'll see he's going to be starting a fire, and he's going to carry this down the hill. And the guy who just created his fire stick there is also going to be, he's lighting his now. You can see that there. So now they're going to start bringing their fire down, and the fire up there is picking up. You can see it. And so what this will do is create a buffer along the tree line. It's been said that in Borneo, the forest is very moist and the fires will not spread. That is not always true. As you can see, the fuels here are cut, and they've been laying there for at least 3 months in the hot, dry season sun. This is cured. And also the fuels underneath, even in the plantation, will burn. So the people here, you're going to see what they're going to do is how they herd the fire and how they manage it. So right now they're creating a black line above that. And again, there's people in the trees that are back there with water staged and a tool, likely a chainsaw with them, and their traditional tools. And so now they're starting to bring fire down. And again, this black area here where they're at was burned out earlier, and that's when they were creating fire line. And that was an area that would have been too thick to clear through with their tools. So they use fire to do it like we would do in Western societies. You can see the fire coming down now along the fire line and how it's being positioned. This area here of bamboo that's sticking out into the river, this could easily be a problem if the Dayak weren't thinking about what they and didn't use proper techniques like they're going to be using now. Because this bamboo here, if lit from the bottom, could easily shoot up the hill and move over into the rubber plantation nearby, which you see. But they're not going to let that happen. And so the guy there with his fire stick is lighting. Right now, he's lighting down the edge, and he is going to create black line with his fire, which is as good as any fire line in the Western world. The other guy is going across, and then he's going to start applying some fire in strategic locations. And what he's doing is he's creating a pocket of fuels down here that will actually hold the fire and that it'll back down into it. And you'll see as you watch what's happens here. You see the fire that's been lit by the guy over on the side on the very edge? That now is creating a black line. So that's going to reinforce the fire line here and keep the fire from moving up into the rubber plantation above it. This is excellent fire use and like defensive fire for what they're doing. Now he is going to walk over the water here as he comes down through the river, making sure that he does not drop his fire anywhere along these fuels that could easily ignite. The man that's already lit his little dot of fire there, you see it, that is lit in a strategic location. And watch this as the video continues, and you'll see what happens with their technique here of what these guys are doing. This is world class and very, very impressive use of fire. And what's unique on top of that is this is a traditional people maintaining their way of life as they have for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So now the guy behind the tree there is moving along and he's applicating some fire into the fuels. And the other guy is going to walk down and cross the river in the center, and he's going to apply some fire in the center. Watch the technique that these guys are using again. If someone wanted, they could easily walk along the bottom, along the edge of the river here and strip fire the whole thing, and the fire would race up the hill and go into the other plantations and be very dangerous. They're not going to do that. Everything or every location here where the fire is being applied is very thought out and very carefully applied. So you can watch him now. He's going to move across. And he's going to apply an area of fire in the center. And what this does is this will create effects with the terrain, the fuels, and the weather that will cause the fire to do a certain thing. Right now, these men here and the people on the around the fire are managing the fire as they would a herd of animals. It's very impressive here. And the families up top that are working are women, children, and men that are up there together that are holding the line. But for the igniters, for the Dayak, they're always men. Something that's dangerous when you use fire like this, and just for everyone's education, is you'll notice that when they light fire, and they get it established at first, the fire looks very innocent and looks very slow to establish. This is where some people run into problems because if you're not very wise about fire and you don't have much training and experience, and then what will soon happen is that little fire will burst into life, and that's when people could get hurt. And so something else that's unique about this, you'll see how the fire is building up here and racing up the hillside, but in a certain direction. You see how it's moving across with the fuels and consuming them, and an edge. And what it's doing is it's creating more defensive black line higher up, and then down low here, this can get hotter because up higher, the fire has already moved through there. So the fire lower is actually moving up into a burn area. This is brilliant managing a fire. So again, down here you see they're lighting some fire, and this fire will cause other things to happen. Over on the far side, the fire line, there's another team of burners, and there's actually a burn boss on this fire. And the burn boss is the landowner for the Dayaks always. So what's happening is the other burner, well, here we'll go back to here. I'll show you. See how the fire is backing down nicely into this bamboo slash, and it's not running up the hill. And so this is because of the way they've lit this and the terrain features. So on the far side of the fire, you see some smoking areas, and this is because there's another team of burners that are working their way slowly down, and they're burning out along the fire line that's been earlier put in strategically. And this is creating a black line that's going to catch the fire on the other side as it moves across this hillside here. But you can see how the fire is racing up the hill here, and it's actually going straight, like it's going up at an angle, but it's not going into the rubber plantation. It's just backing a little bit there. And you can see how it's backing down into this other bamboo here, and it's backing down towards the river here. This is perfect management of the fire. The men down here are lighting their fire. Again, see how it's little innocent fire, and how it'll get much bigger over here. Sometimes on a forest fire, you'll hear about people that are entrapped by firing running up a hill. If you look here, you'll see it so you can understand better. If you were to try to retreat from this fire, if you were on a hillside and it started picking up, it'd be very difficult to retreat, especially if you were in right below it, because a fire runs straight up the hill like that, and there's gases exploding, and this is where people can get hurt. And they do get hurt, and it happens all around the world. But this fire is going perfectly. It's cleaning this edge here up, and it's moving across in a wave. There's burners down there together. They have lit their fire now, and they're moving down, and they're going to light some more dots along the bottom here. This is super heavy fuels, and again, if they didn't know what they were doing, someone could really cause a lot of havoc here, and a really dangerous situation. In Borneo, occasionally within the last 20 years, there's been some really devastating fires. And that fire has created a lot of smoke that's affected regional cities such as Singapore. This is not coming from the Dayak fires. This is coming from other ways. And if you watch my other videos, you can learn more about it. The fire here in front of me has gotten so intense, I've had to retreat back inside the forest edge here, which you're seeing now, because it's so hot and is moving across right there. But it's burning perfectly, and just treating the land and doing what the Dayak goals are for their fire. The Dayak goals here are for clearance, of clearing all of this slash fuel off the hillside. In different parts of the world, different uses are done with fire. In Australia, for instance, hazard reductions are very popular because of fuel levels. And the thing with Australian fires, especially the fire brigades in the southeast, many of them are improperly trained and experienced. So there's a lot of issues that happen there. And one just recently happened in Australia. Their issues is how the fire is started. Instead of a mastery of fire is used, like with the Dayak here, in Australia, what's done in a lot of locations is just strip firing across the bottom, which causes the fire to roll up the hill, and that could easily get out of hand, in which it does, which it recently has. And it also burns the landscape too hot for wildlife, especially in the tree level. But again, fire use is related to what you want for the fire. America, fire use would be for resources, like instance in Canada, with the big pine plantations, you would use fire. Or in the southeast, there's pine plantations. Or for managing wildlife, for their feed, the grasses, or for the deer, or for the turkeys, the cockaded woodpecker. Fire is also used in the American West for timber and for the land, because the land in America and Australia is actually been exposed to fires for a very long time, like in Africa. And so it actually are fire regimes that where fire is necessary on the landscape to keep a healthy ecosystem. Here you see the fire moving down, and again, it's moving just perfectly down the ridgeline, and the fire in front of us is backing down to clear out these pockets of fuel. And after this fire, if there's some debris left on the fire ground, what will happen is what the Dayak called a secondary fire process, and that they will go around and they will bone pile, as we call it, or pick up sticks or pick up different fuels and burn them again, or apply fire randomly in different locations to make sure everything has burned completely across so they can be ready for their planting. So the Dayak goals for this fire use is land clearance so that they can plant their rice fields. And again, this is very, very, very old and techniques, and this is very wise of many, many generations of learning and applying fire and seeing different outcomes and learning those outcomes. I truly believe that the wildfire use by the Dayak is tremendously valuable for all of humanity because the Dayaks have created this fire regime of fire and rice and using fire like in this area here in a highly complex way. And they have such a depth of knowledge of fire, how to use it, how to manage it, and how dangerous it is, and how it could get away. This is equivalent to the Alaskans, the Alaskan Eskimos, in that the Alaskan Eskimos, it said, have 10 different words for the idea of snow. And snow itself is a concept that in the Western world we usually have one or two words for. But the Eskimos have such a depth of understanding because they live in it every day, and their knowledge of it is related to their survival often. And it's the same with these wildfires in the Dayak. Their knowledge that they have a wildfire is so deep and so interconnected that it's a very, very valuable thing for all of humanity. In Australia and the North, there's a resurgence now of Aboriginal fire. But the Aboriginal fire was greatly reduced and cut down for a number of years. So a lot of the original depth of fire knowledge and all the interconnected workings with it has been lost. There's still a lot today that still exist and is still being used by the Aboriginals in especially the north of Australia, but there's much has been lost. The same would happen here with the Dayak. If fire is taken away from them for just a year or 2 years, they'll start to lose their fire knowledge. That's internationally very valuable. And within a generation, they would have lost it all. And for the Dayak people, there's not many places now where they're able to use fire and live a traditional lifestyle as they are now. But this is one of the last places, and the wildfire and Dayaks are very valuable here because of this. And again, I would say that there is a value here on an international level for fire agencies worldwide and how to control and understand fire to the level and depth that the Dayaks do. Because there's many areas of the world, especially in Southeast Australia, where this is not known and not practiced. And the Dayak are very advanced for this. So go back to the fire here, and you'll see how the wave is being applied all the way across the hillside here, how the fuels have built, how the fuels have burned down very nicely. And again, it's backing down there. And this fire has been an absolutely success for the Dayak. And you can see how it's starting to reach the other edge of the fire ground, and soon it'll start dying down over there. Keep watching the fire activity as it goes around to the other side and meets the clearing on the other side and where the people are staged to catch the fire. This is really unique. I wanted to show you this and share it with you as I wanted to go there and actually see this myself and learn from the Dayaks, because this is very interesting and this is very old. And this, again, is of value for all of humanity. We're doing this for all of you. If you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment below. See you next time.